On the corner of a bustling street, there stood an old wooden bench that most passers-by ignored. For 3 days, a scruffy homeless dog sat near it, guarding a tattered leather bag as if his life depended on it. His fur was matted, and his ribs showed through his skin, but his eyes were sharp and filled with purpose. People walked by, some throwing him curious glances, others avoiding him altogether. No one dared to approach the bag. A street vendor remarked to his neighbor, "That dog hasn't moved an inch. What's so special about that bag?" The neighbor shrugged, replying, "It's just a mutt. Probably doesn't even know what's in it." But the dog's unwavering vigilance told a different story. It wasn't just a random bag. It was something he was willing to protect at all costs. Mia, a kind-hearted young woman who worked at a nearby coffee shop, had been watching the dog from afar. She noticed how he barked at anyone who got too close to the bag, but remained calm when people passed by without stopping. One evening, after her shift, Mia decided to approach him. She carried a small sandwich in her hand, hoping to gain his trust. "Hey there, boy," she said softly, kneeling a few feet away. The dog growled lowly, his eyes darting between Mia and the bag. "I'm not here to hurt you," she continued, placing the sandwich on the ground and sliding it toward him. The dog sniffed the air, his growls fading as he cautiously took a step forward. Mia smiled, feeling a small sense of victory. But as soon as she tried to touch the bag, the dog barked loudly, making her retreat. The shopkeepers along the street had started to notice the strange situation. "That dog's been there for days," muttered Mr. Harris, the owner of a bookstore. "Why hasn't animal control come to take him away?" Mrs. Patel, who ran the flower shop next door, chimed in. "Maybe he's waiting for someone. Dogs are loyal like that, you know. Or maybe there's money in that bag," a young delivery boy suggested. "What if it's stolen?" The speculation grew wilder with each passing hour. Mia listened quietly, her gaze fixed on the dog. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than anyone realized. That night, Mia decided to stay longer than usual to watch over the dog. She brought a blanket and a thermos of hot chocolate, settling herself on a nearby bench. The street lights flickered as a cold wind blew through the empty street. Around midnight, a shadowy figure appeared at the far end of the street. The man was tall, wearing a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscured most of his face. He walked slowly, his eyes scanning the area until they landed on the dog and the bag. The dog immediately stood up, his body tense and his growls growing louder. The man hesitated, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. Mia's heart raced as she realized the bag wasn't just an ordinary possession. It was something worth protecting, even from strangers in the night. The next morning, Mia noticed something new about the bag. A small patch near the bottom had a tear, and through it, she could see a flash of something metallic. She crouched down, trying to get a better look, but the dog growled, his body blocking her view. Okay, I get it," Mia said, holding up her hands in surrender. "But you can't expect me not to be curious." She spent the rest of the day trying to piece together what little she knew. Who had left the bag? Why was the dog so loyal to it? And what had scared off the man from the previous night? Over the next few days, Mia and the dog developed an unspoken bond. She brought him food and water every morning, and he allowed her to sit closer to the bag. Though he never let his guard down completely, Mia could tell he was starting to trust her. One evening, as she stroked his matted fur, she whispered, "You're not just any dog, are you? You've got a story to tell." The dog looked up at her with his soulful eyes, as if he understood every word. Mia's peaceful routine with the dog was interrupted one evening when the shadowy man returned. This time, he was bolder, stepping into the circle of light cast by a street lamp. "You shouldn't be here," the man said, his voice low and threatening. Mia stood her ground. "Why do you care? Do you know what's in the bag?" The man smirked, but didn't answer. Instead, he took a step forward, but the dog barked ferociously, forcing him to retreat once again. "This isn't over," the man muttered, before disappearing into the shadows. The next day, Mia decided to share the strange events with Detective Ryan, a regular customer at her coffee shop. She described the dog, the bag, and the mysterious man, who seemed intent on getting close to it. Ryan frowned, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. "A dog guarding a bag for days, and a man lurking around it. Sounds like trouble. Whatever's in that bag might not be safe for you, or anyone else." Mia hesitated. "But the dog, he's so protective. It feels like there's a reason he's guarding it." Ryan sighed. "I'll swing by tonight and take a look. But Mia, stay out of it. Let me handle this." Mia nodded reluctantly, but deep down, she knew she couldn't walk away from the dog or the mystery. That evening, Mia returned to the bench, bringing a fresh meal for the dog. To her surprise, she found a folded piece of paper wedged beneath the bag. Her heart pounded as she opened it, revealing hastily scrawled handwriting. "Don't trust anyone. The bag holds the truth. Keep him safe." Mia's mind raced. Who had left the note? Was it meant for her or someone else? She glanced at the dog, who was watching her intently, as if he knew what the note said. Her thoughts were interrupted by footsteps. She quickly stuffed the note into her pocket and turned to see Detective Ryan approaching. Detective Ryan crouched near the dog, his experienced eyes scanning the area. "He's a smart one," Ryan said, nodding toward the dog. "But whatever he's guarding, it's dangerous enough for someone to want it badly." Mia debated whether to show him the note, but decided against it. She didn't know who to trust anymore. Ryan reached for the bag, but the dog barked sharply, his teeth bared. "Looks like I'm not getting anywhere tonight," Ryan said with a chuckle. "Keep an eye out, Mia, and if anything happens, call me immediately." As Ryan walked away, Mia felt the weight of the note in her pocket. The words echoed in her mind. Don't trust anyone. Mia stayed with the dog that night, unable to shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. The street was unusually quiet, the silence only broken by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant car horns. The dog lay beside the bag, his ears twitching at every sound. Mia sat close by, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. She whispered to the dog, "I don't know why, but I feel like you're protecting something really important. I just wish you could tell me what it is." The dog nudged her hand with his nose, a small gesture of trust. It was the first time he had shown affection, and it gave Mia a sense of hope amidst the growing mystery. At around 3 a.m., Mia heard a faint scraping sound. Her body tensed as she scanned the area. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving cautiously toward the bench. It was the same man she had seen before. The dog immediately sprang to his feet, barking loudly and baring his teeth. The man hesitated, but then lunged for the bag. Mia reacted instinctively, grabbing a nearby stick and shouting, "Get away!" The commotion startled the man, who backed off and disappeared into the night once again. Mia's heart raced as she sat back down, clutching the stick tightly. The dog returned to his position, growling softly, as if to reassure her that he was still on guard. The next morning, Mia noticed something she hadn't seen before. The bag had a small zipper hidden along its side. The dog watched her closely as she hesitated, then slowly reached for it. "I'm not taking anything," she whispered. "I just need to know." She unzipped the hidden compartment and found a small notebook inside. Its pages were filled with scribbled notes and sketches, but one page caught her eye, a drawing of the dog, sitting exactly as he was now, guarding the bag. "What is this?" Mia murmured, flipping through the pages. The notes were cryptic, mentioning dates, locations, and names she didn't recognize. But one phrase stood out: "Protect him at all costs." Mia spent the day trying to decipher the notebook. She noticed a recurring name, Daniel Carter. It seemed important, but she had no idea who Daniel was or how he was connected to the dog. As she researched online, she found a news article from 2 years ago about a young man named Daniel Carter who had gone missing. He was described as an animal rights activist known for rescuing stray dogs. The article included a photo of Daniel with a dog, the very same dog guarding the bag. Mia's breath caught. "This isn't just a coincidence," she said aloud. "You're his dog, aren't you?" The dog wagged his tail slightly, as if confirming her theory. Mia couldn't stop staring at the photo of Daniel Carter with the dog. There was an unmistakable connection between them. "You must have loved him," she whispered to the dog. The animal responded with a soft whine, lowering his head as if he understood. The article revealed that Daniel had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. His last known location was in a small park, only a few blocks from where the dog had been guarding the bag. Mia's heart ached for the dog's loyalty. For 2 years, he had waited, holding on to something that might unlock the truth. Determined to learn more, Mia contacted the journalist who had written the article. She left a message, hoping they might remember something that could help. The next morning, Mia received a call from the journalist, Emily Hughes. "I remember that case," Emily said. "Daniel was passionate about helping animals. He always believed in protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, but then he just vanished." Mia explained the dog's behavior and the mysterious bag. Emily was intrigued. "If that dog is connected to Daniel, there's a good chance the bag contains something important. But be careful, Daniel had enemies. Not everyone appreciated his work." The warning sent chills down Mia's spine. "Enemies? Like who?" she asked. "People involved in illegal animal trade," Emily replied. "Daniel was trying to expose them. If they're still out there, they won't stop until they get what they want." Mia felt torn. The dog's loyalty to Daniel was undeniable, but the risks of digging deeper were growing. She couldn't shake the feeling that the bag held evidence that might explain Daniel's disappearance and potentially put her in danger. She decided to share her findings with Detective Ryan. Though she didn't fully trust him, his resources and experience could be invaluable. She called him, carefully omitting the details about the note she had found. "I'll meet you tonight," Ryan said. "Stay put and don't do anything reckless." Mia hung up, her eyes drifting to the dog. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," she said softly. The dog, as always, remained her silent guardian. As the hours passed, Mia decided to take another look at the notebook. She noticed a pattern in the scribbled notes. Certain words were underlined repeatedly. When she listed them together, they formed a chilling message. "They're watching. Trust no one. Keep the truth hidden." Her heart raced as she realized the danger was even closer than she had imagined. The dog suddenly perked up, his ears twitching. He growled low, staring at the window. Mia froze. Was someone outside? She moved cautiously, peeking through the curtains. There, in the shadows, she saw a figure lingering near the bench. Mia's pulse quickened as she watched the figure inch closer to the bench. She grabbed her phone, ready to call Detective Ryan, but before she could dial, the dog bolted to the door, barking fiercely. The figure froze, then retreated into the darkness. Mia's hands trembled as she locked the door and sank into a chair. "This is getting out of hand," she whispered. The dog returned to her side, his eyes sharp and vigilant. For the first time, Mia felt that he wasn't just protecting the bag, he was protecting her too. Detective Ryan arrived later that evening, his expression serious as Mia recounted the events of the day. He studied the bag but didn't attempt to open it, respecting the dog's protective stance. "You're right to be cautious," Ryan said. "But if someone's watching you, we need to act fast. I'll station an officer nearby to keep an eye on things." Mia nodded, but something about Ryan's demeanor felt off. Was he genuinely concerned, or did he have his own agenda? The dog didn't seem to trust him either, keeping his distance and growling softly whenever Ryan got too close. The next day, while Mia was at work, a woman approached her at the coffee shop. She was dressed in plain clothes, her face lined with worry. "You're Mia, right?" the woman asked quietly. "Yes, can I help you?" Mia replied, wary of the stranger. "My name is Claire. I knew Daniel Carter," the woman said, glancing around nervously. If that dog is still guarding his bag, you're in serious danger. Mia's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Daniel uncovered something big, something that could ruin powerful people. That bag, it's evidence. They'll do anything to get it back. Mia stared at Claire, her mind racing. What kind of evidence are we talking about? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Claire hesitated, her eyes darting around the room. I don't know exactly. Daniel was careful not to tell anyone too much, but I know it's about an underground network that deals in illegal animal trafficking. He was about to expose them before he disappeared. Mia felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Why haven't you gone to the police? I tried, Claire said bitterly, but they're involved too, at least some of them. You can't trust anyone. Her words echoed Daniel's hidden message. Trust no one. That night, Mia sat on the floor of her apartment, the dog by her side. She ran her fingers through his fur, seeking comfort in his steady presence. You knew Daniel, didn't you? She whispered. You're the only one I can trust. The dog tilted his head, his intelligent eyes locked onto hers. He nudged the bag with his nose, then looked back at her. Do you want me to open it? Mia asked softly. The dog barked once, a low, deliberate sound. Mia's hands trembled as she reached for the zipper. Slowly, she opened the bag, revealing its contents: a worn leather journal, a flash drive, and a crumpled envelope. Mia carefully opened the journal, her eyes scanning the pages. It was filled with Daniel's notes, names, locations, dates. The entries detailed the operations of a secretive organization involved in smuggling exotic animals. The flash drive was labeled Proof in bold letters. Mia didn't dare plug it into her computer, fearing it might be tracked. She turned her attention to the envelope, which contained a letter written in Daniel's shaky handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm likely gone. The truth is on the flash drive. Expose it. But be careful, they'll stop at nothing to silence anyone who knows. Mia's chest tightened. The stakes were higher than she had imagined. Unable to sleep, Mia sat by the window, staring out at the empty street. The dog rested at her feet, but his ears twitched at every sound. Around midnight, he suddenly stood, his body tense. He growled low, staring at the front door. Mia's heart pounded as she heard faint footsteps outside. She turned off the lights and peeked through the curtains. A man in a dark hoodie was pacing near her apartment, his movements deliberate. She grabbed her phone and texted Detective Ryan. Someone's outside. Come quickly. The dog barked, loud and ferocious, and the figure fled into the shadows. Ryan arrived minutes later, his car screeching to a halt outside Mia's building. He stepped out, gun drawn, and scanned the area. I didn't see anyone, he said when he reached her door. Are you sure they were here? Mia nodded, her hands still shaking. The dog saw him first. He doesn't bark unless there's a reason. Ryan glanced at the dog, then back at Mia. We need to move fast. If they're watching you, it's only a matter of time before they make another move. Do you think it's the same people Daniel was investigating? Mia asked. Ryan's expression darkened. I'm almost certain. The next morning, Claire called Mia with a warning. You need to disappear for a while. They'll come for you, now that you've opened the bag. Mia hesitated. Disappear? Where would I go? I know a safe house, Claire said. Daniel used it when he was hiding. I'll send you the address. Mia felt a flicker of hope. Why are you helping me? Because Daniel was my friend, Claire said. And because I believe in what he was trying to do. He wouldn't want you to get hurt. The dog barked softly, as if agreeing with Claire's plan. The safe house was a small, secluded cabin, deep in the woods. Mia arrived late in the afternoon, her nerves frayed from the long drive. The dog, however, seemed at ease, sniffing the air and wagging his tail. Inside, Mia found a stack of canned food, a first aid kit, and a dusty laptop. A note taped to the wall read, "For emergencies only." She plugged in the flash drive, her hands shaking. The files it contained were explosive: videos, documents, and photos, proving the involvement of high-ranking officials in the illegal animal trade. Mia realized she was holding the key to a massive conspiracy. Mia spent hours going through the files on the flash drive, her heart sinking with every revelation. The videos showed animals in deplorable conditions, being smuggled across borders in cramped containers. The documents revealed a web of powerful individuals, politicians, businessmen, and law enforcement officials, working together to protect the illegal trade. "This is bigger than I thought," Mia whispered, her voice trembling. The dog sat beside her, his head resting on her lap. He seemed to sense her distress, his eyes full of silent encouragement. She knew she couldn't do this alone. But who could she trust? Mia decided to call Detective Ryan. She needed someone on the inside, someone who could help her bring this to light without getting caught. "Ryan, I found something," she said when he answered. "What is it?" he asked, his voice cautious. "I can't explain over the phone. It's all on the flash drive. Can you meet me somewhere safe?" Ryan hesitated. "Mia, you need to be careful. If anyone finds out what you have—" "I know," she interrupted. "That's why I need your help. Send me the location," Ryan said finally. "I'll be there." Mia chose a quiet park on the outskirts of town for their meeting. She arrived early, her nerves on edge. The dog stayed close to her side, his eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. When Ryan arrived, he looked around cautiously before sitting beside her on the bench. "You look like you haven't slept," he said. "I haven't," Mia admitted. "This is too big to ignore, Ryan. The files, everything Daniel was working on. It's all here." She handed him the flash drive. Ryan pocketed it. "I'll look into it tonight, but Mia, you need to stay hidden." As Mia drove back to the safe house, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. She glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a black SUV trailing her at a distance. Her heart pounded. She pressed the gas pedal, her mind racing. "It's them," she whispered. The dog growled softly, sensing her fear. Mia turned onto a dirt road, hoping to lose them in the dense forest. The SUV followed, its headlights cutting through the darkness. "Hold on," she said, gripping the wheel tightly. She swerved onto a narrow trail, praying it would lead her to safety. The trail was rough and overgrown, but Mia pushed forward, her car bouncing over rocks and roots. The SUV struggled to keep up, its larger size working against it. The dog barked sharply, urging her on. Finally, the SUV came to a halt, its wheels stuck in the mud. Mia didn't stop to look back. When she reached the safe house, she parked the car behind the cabin and hurried inside. Her hands were still shaking as she locked the door. "We made it," she said, sinking to the floor. The dog licked her face, his tail wagging in relief. Meanwhile, Ryan sat in his apartment, his laptop open in front of him. He plugged in the flash drive and began to examine its contents. The evidence was overwhelming. There were transaction records, secret emails, and even video footage implicating several high-ranking officials. Ryan's jaw tightened. He knew this wasn't just about animal trafficking. It was about power and corruption at the highest levels. He picked up his phone and called Mia. "You were right," he said. "This changes everything. But we have to be smart about how we use this." "Do you think we can stop them?" Mia asked. "We have to try," Ryan replied. Ryan and Mia devised a plan to expose the truth. They decided to leak the files to a trusted journalist who had a reputation for uncovering corruption. "There's a risk they'll trace it back to us," Ryan warned. "I don't care," Mia said firmly. "Daniel gave his life for this. I'm not going to let them get away with it." The dog barked in agreement, his eyes shining with determination. They agreed to meet the journalist in a public place the next day. Mia felt a mix of fear and hope as she prepared for what was to come. The journalist, a middle-aged woman named Elena, met them at a busy cafe. She listened intently as Ryan and Mia explained the situation, her expression growing graver with each passing minute. "This is dangerous," Elena said, "but it's important. I'll publish the story and make sure the evidence is shared widely." Mia handed her the flash drive. "Be careful," she said. Elena nodded. You too, they won't go down without a fight. As Mia watched Elena leave, she felt a glimmer of hope. For the first time, it felt like they might actually succeed. Would you like me to continue with more chapters? That night, Mia sat on the porch of the safe house, her thoughts racing. The dog lay at her feet, his steady breathing providing a sense of calm in the chaos. I hope this works, she whispered, more to herself than to the dog. I don't know what else we can do. The dog lifted his head and looked at her with those soulful eyes, as if to say, "You're doing the right thing." Mia reached down and scratched behind his ears. "You've been my rock through all of this. I don't know what I'd do without you." The stars overhead seemed brighter than usual, but Mia knew the storm was far from over. Early the next morning, Mia's phone buzzed. It was a text from Elena. "It's out. The story's live. Brace yourself." Mia opened her laptop and saw the headline splashed across the homepage of a major news outlet. "Elite Animal Trafficking Ring Exposed. Corruption at the Highest Levels." The article detailed everything from the smuggling operations to the involvement of powerful figures. It was already trending on social media, with thousands of people sharing it and demanding justice. Mia's heart raced. They had struck the first blow, but she knew the retaliation would be swift. By midday, the backlash began. Mia noticed cars parked outside the safe house that hadn't been there before. Men in suits lingered on the street, pretending to be ordinary passers-by. "They're watching us," she told Ryan over the phone. "I expected this," Ryan said. "But it's a good sign. It means they're scared." "What do we do now?" Mia asked. "Lay low," Ryan advised. "Let the story gain traction. The more people know about it, the harder it'll be for them to cover it up." The dog growled softly, as if he could sense the danger looming. The story continued to spread like wildfire. News stations picked it up, and protests erupted across the country. People demanded accountability, calling for the arrest of everyone involved in the trafficking ring. Social media was flooded with messages of support for the whistleblowers. Mia saw posts from strangers thanking her and Ryan, though their identities hadn't been revealed. Despite the growing support, Mia couldn't shake the feeling of dread. She knew the people they were up against wouldn't go down without a fight. The dog stayed close to her, his presence a constant reminder that she wasn't alone. Late one night, Mia was startled awake by the sound of shattering glass. She jumped out of bed, her heart pounding. The dog was already on high alert, barking furiously. She grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the living room. The front window was broken, and a brick lay on the floor. A note was tied to it. She unfolded the note with trembling hands. It read, "Back off, or you'll regret it." Mia sank onto the couch, fear washing over her. She knew the stakes were high, but this was the first time she truly felt the weight of the danger she was in. The next morning, Mia shared the note with Ryan. "They're trying to scare us," Ryan said. "But we can't let them win." Mia hesitated. "What if they come after us, or the people we care about?" "They'll try," Ryan admitted. "But we're not alone in this. The public is on our side. We have to trust that the truth will protect us." The dog nudged Mia's hand, his silent support giving her the courage she needed to keep going. "We're in this together," she said, her voice firm. As the days passed, more evidence began to surface. Whistleblowers from within the trafficking ring came forward, emboldened by the public outcry. One former smuggler provided crucial information about the operation's inner workings. His testimony was broadcast on live television, further exposing the corruption. Mia watched the interview with tears in her eyes. For the first time, it felt like they were making real progress. The dog wagged his tail, as if sensing her relief. "We're getting there," Mia said, stroking his fur. "We just have to hold on a little longer." Ryan had been working behind the scenes, rallying more supporters to their cause. Lawyers, journalists, and activists began reaching out, offering their help. "We've got a team now," Ryan told Mia over the phone. "They want justice as much as we do." Mia felt a surge of hope. For weeks, she had felt like they were fighting an uphill battle alone. But now, it seemed like the tide was turning. The dog seemed to sense her optimism, wagging his tail as she paced the room. "Looks like we're not in this fight by ourselves anymore, buddy," she said. Despite the growing support, the threats against Mia and Ryan intensified. One evening, while Mia was walking the dog, she noticed a car following her. She kept her pace steady, her heart pounding as she tried to stay calm. The dog growled softly, his ears pricked. Mia turned down a side street, hoping to lose the car. When she glanced back, it was gone. She exhaled in relief, but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When she got back to the safe house, she bolted the door and sat down with the dog. "We've got to be more careful," she whispered. One afternoon, Mia received a call from Elena. "We've found something big," Elena said, her voice trembling with excitement. "There's a hidden ledger detailing every transaction in the trafficking ring. Names, dates, amounts. It's all there." Mia felt a surge of adrenaline. "Where did you find it?" "It was buried in the company's old archives," Elena explained. "We've got copies, and we're sending them to every major news outlet." Mia looked down at the dog, who was resting his head on her lap. "This could be the break we've been waiting for," she said, stroking his fur. The publication of the ledger sent shockwaves through the nation. The evidence was undeniable, implicating powerful figures in politics and business. Protests erupted in major cities, with people demanding immediate arrests. Mia watched the news, her heart pounding as reporters detailed the scale of the corruption. "It's working," Ryan said when he called her. "They can't hide anymore." The dog barked happily, as if sensing their victory was near. Mia smiled and scratched behind his ears. "We're almost there," she said. "We just have to keep pushing." One night, as Mia was locking up, she heard a loud crash outside. She peeked through the window and saw two men trying to break into the house. The dog sprang into action, barking ferociously. Mia grabbed her phone and dialed 911, her hands shaking. The men fled before the police arrived, but the incident left Mia rattled. She knew the closer they got to exposing the truth, the more desperate their enemies would become. "We're not giving up," she told the dog, her voice steady despite her fear. No matter what, Ryan organized a press conference, inviting journalists and activists to speak out against the trafficking ring. Mia watched from the sidelines as survivors shared their stories, their voices breaking as they recounted the horrors they had endured. The crowd was moved to tears, and chants for justice echoed through the streets. Mia felt a lump in her throat as she realized the impact their efforts were having. The dog sat beside her, his head resting on her knee. "We're making a difference," she whispered. "This is what we've been fighting for." The ringleaders of the trafficking operation were finally arrested, but not without a fight. One of them attempted to flee the country, only to be caught at the airport. Mia watched the news coverage, her heart racing as she saw footage of the arrests. The dog barked excitedly, sensing her relief. "It's over," Ryan said when he called her. "We did it." Mia felt tears streaming down her face. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe. They had won. The dog wagged his tail, his eyes shining with joy. In the weeks that followed, Mia and Ryan worked to help the survivors rebuild their lives. Donations poured in from around the world, and support networks were established. Mia spent her days volunteering at shelters, where the dog quickly became a favorite among the children. His gentle nature brought comfort to everyone he met. As she watched the survivors begin to heal, Mia felt a deep sense of gratitude. They had faced unimaginable darkness, but together they had found the strength to overcome it. Mia stood in front of a newly built community center dedicated to survivors of human trafficking. A plaque on the wall bore the inscription, "In honor of the resilience of the human spirit and the courage to seek justice." The dog wagged his tail as children played around him, their laughter filling the air. One little girl approached Mia, holding out a drawing of the dog with a superhero cape. "Thank you for saving us," the girl said shyly. Mia knelt down, her eyes brimming with tears. "You're the real hero," she replied, hugging her tightly. The story of the homeless dog, the mysterious bag, and the fight against a trafficking ring captured global attention. News outlets featured the tale, calling it a symbol of hope and resilience. Ryan joked, "We're trending everywhere. Hero dog is the top hashtag." Mia laughed as she scrolled through social media, seeing countless posts about the dog. People shared their own stories of survival and courage, inspired by the unlikely hero who had guarded a bag that sparked a revolution. The dog, oblivious to his fame, rested at her feet, content and at peace. The mysterious bag that had once been the focus of so much attention was now displayed at the community center. Inside were artifacts that had helped uncover the trafficking ring, documents, photos, and the GPS tracker that had led Mia to the operation. Visitors came from far and wide to see the exhibit, leaving notes of gratitude and admiration. Mia stood beside the display, reflecting on how one act of curiosity and compassion had changed so many lives. The dog sat beside her, his eyes shining with the quiet wisdom of a companion who had seen it all. Though the major players of the trafficking ring were behind bars, danger still lurked in the shadows. One evening, Mia received an anonymous message warning her to stop speaking out. She showed the message to Ryan. "We can't let this scare us," she said firmly. The dog growled softly, as if sensing the threat. Ryan nodded. "They're trying to silence us because they're afraid. That means we're doing something right." Mia hugged the dog tightly. "We'll stay strong, won't we, buddy?" she whispered. The dog licked her cheek in response. Mia and Ryan were invited to an awards ceremony, honoring individuals who had made a significant impact in the fight against trafficking. As Mia walked onto the stage, the dog trotted beside her, drawing cheers and applause from the audience. She held back tears as she accepted the award. "This isn't just for me," she said. "It's for every survivor, every advocate, and for this incredible dog who reminded me that hope can come from the most unexpected places." The standing ovation that followed left Mia overwhelmed with gratitude. One day, as Mia was walking the dog in the park, a familiar face approached them. It was Elena, the whistleblower who had risked everything to expose the truth. "Elena!" Mia exclaimed, rushing to hug her. The dog barked excitedly, wagging his tail. Elena knelt down to pet him. "This dog really is a hero," she said with a smile. They spent hours catching up, reminiscing about their journey and discussing plans to continue their advocacy work. Mia felt a renewed sense of purpose. Mia often wondered about the dog's past. One afternoon, while visiting the vet for a routine checkup, she learned that he had once belonged to an elderly woman who had passed away. The vet explained, "After she died, he wandered the streets, looking for her. He's been through a lot." Mia hugged the dog tightly. "Well, he has a family now," she said. From that day on, Mia made it her mission to give the dog the love and care he had always deserved. Mia and Ryan began traveling to different countries, sharing their story and raising awareness about trafficking. The dog accompanied them everywhere, becoming a symbol of hope and resilience. At one conference, a survivor approached Mia. "Your story gave me the courage to speak out," she said, tears streaming down her face. Mia hugged her tightly. "You're so brave," she said. "Never forget that." The dog wagged his tail, as if encouraging the woman to keep going. Years later, Mia sat on the porch of her countryside home, watching the sun set. The dog, now older but just as loyal, lay at her feet. "You've been with me through everything," she said softly, scratching behind his ears. "I couldn't have done it without you." As the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Mia felt a deep sense of peace. They had faced unimaginable challenges, but together they had created a legacy of hope, love, and justice. And in that moment, with her faithful companion by her side, Mia knew they had truly made a difference.